Salutations, my name is Phil, aka JC Servant, and welcome to a very exciting day because today is Patch Day, and there's a lot of exciting changes here in this particular update, so I'm very excited to go over them, especially we're seeing significant changes to Sentinel, Brute, and Mastermind. A lot of my favorite classes are in there, a lot of the in fact, that's all three. That's the top three solo friendly classes in the game that I focus on the most on this channel. So even though I love Dominator second, and I don't see a lot of Dominator changes, sadly, but I love my Dom anyway. Anyways, let's go over the notes. I'm going to read these out loud. That's what you guys told me you like it when I read these out loud. Some of you want more detail was kind of the pushback I got, or feedback I got. So I'll try to read a little bit more detail, but I'm still not going to read every single line, or this video will literally be 3 hours long. So we'll see how much we get in here, but we'll make it kind of long. We'll definitely read through a bunch. So here we go. All right. So for you Badgers out there, we got a few new ones. Home Sweet Home. If you spend 60 seconds in your own super group, you get that badge. Based. Visit a super group base to earn this badge. A visit means you spend at least 60 seconds in a base from a super group other than your own. You can enter bases via leader teammates, coalition permission, base passcodes, or the public base listing in the super group registrar. Once you visit a base, it will not give you credit for a visit again until it resets. So that's called the based badge. Then there's the truly based where you do 10 of those. There's the actually based where you visit 50 supergroup bases. And then there's the unfathomably based where you visit 100 supergroup bases. I've never been a big, huge fan of badges myself. If you're going to do this, please let me know in the comments below. I will say they at least look cool. They have cool little, icons next to them and stuff. So they did some nice work there. Day jobs. Surveyor of mazes. Spend 100 hours offline in the Labyrinth of Fog to earn this badge. Logging out within Labyrinth of Fog will earn you a bonus to the number of Nightmare Obols you receive when you log back in each time you complete a mission for a short time. So that actually seems interesting if you're a maze type of player there. Defeats, you get a Dreamcatcher badge there if you defeat 100 of the Labyrinth Nightmares. So that's pretty nice. Now, there is some adjustments made. 10 times the victor. The 9 badges leading up to this badge are now kept and with new badge art. So 1500. Updated the art of the villain badge count badges to be more in line with the original look from retail. Actually, it's very interesting. If you're watching the video, you can see what those look like right there. They've got those images pasted in there. I'll kind of zoom a little bit. You can see them a little bit better on the video. Malevolent Intoxication. The badge now unlocks Phantom Gateway Destination across to the core of the labyrinth. Badge is now hinted at level 35. Hint mentions the badge unlocks core access. I don't know what that means. Maybe somebody can help me out with that. Slayer of the Minotaur. The badge is now hinted at level 35. Hint mentions the badge unlocks core access. Greek Philosopher. Badge hint mentions the badge unlocks core access. Hidden in the Fog. Badge is now hinted at level 35. Badge hint mentions the badge unlocks Colonnade access. Lucid Dreamer. Badge is now hinted at after obtaining core access. Badge hint mention that the badge unlocks Origin access. The various badges rewarded for completing the Shining Stars, Hearts of Darkness tutorial arcs now also rewards it to team members instead of being the owner only. So there you go. Some little tweaks to badges that need to be done. Slot enhancements. So we've got some changes to slot moving. When attempting to add an enhancement to a power with no empty slots, the game will try to reassign an empty slot from another power if one is available. This allows for moving slots between powers without doing a full-blown respec. So if you're trying to, let's say, enhance a power that has no empty slots left, but let's say you've only got you have four slots, you didn't put all 6 in yet, and there's an empty slot from another power, it will essentially move that slot up. Now that's very interesting. That implies that you're going to have some freedom, some pretty big freedom here. We're going to have to put this up. We're going to have to try this out here. We're going to try some of this stuff out here at the videos at the end, guys, if you're watching. And I think this will be one that we can show because this means essentially, let's say I had put 4 slots into one attack power and 6 into another. And I want to swap the 6 and the 4, right? Then what I could do is I could unslot the enhancements in that 6 slotted power, leaving those 2 slots open, and then try to drag an enhancement onto the 4 slot power, and it should suck up that slot. So we're going to try working with enhancements, and we'll try to show that at the end of reading everything so you guys can see that enhancement change in action. Invention set enhancements now have different border colors depending on their rarity. PvP enhancements are red, so there you go. You see some examples of that there on the screen. That's pretty cool. Let's see here. Hide the level of the Going Rogue pre-order enhancements. All right. Ensure that all invention set recipes match the rarity of their conversion set. So Achilles heel, for example, is uncommon to rare. Adjusted target, rare to uncommon. And there's a whole list of these. I'm not going to read all of those out, but they've just made some tweaks to the invention set recipes to match the rarity of their conversion set. Customization, weapon customization proliferation. In broadsword, I think we now have a pirate rapier. In dual blade, there's a Roman gladiator, Roman savage, Romulus Augustus, Romulus Nictus, and pirate rapier. I believe those are just new additions. Power theme customization. It says broadsword, there is now an alternate sound effects. The Chimeron weapon sounds for slash, hack, slice, boomerang, slice, and whirling sword. In costumes, add the following costume pieces to the Dealer of Death shop in the Labyrinth of Fog for 10 Nightmare Opals each. There is the Phantom Cheek Guard 3. There is that's a helmet detail. In boots, we have the Phantom Wing boots. And in the back, you have the Phantom Wings, which sounds really, really cool. Adjustments, shorten the name on Awakened costume pieces to reduce their text length in the menu. So keep that in mind. All right. Rewards. We've added a new reward. We added a recipe for Pet Ricti Monkey Vulture that drops from Ricti bosses and elite bosses. It's a 0.1% drop chance, which that's a really cool thing. You could definitely go and farm those bosses up. I'm doing a lot of Ricti story arc deals on my level 50 characters, so that's an incentive to turn on bosses. Because normally you have the option if you're soloing to turn those on or not. New prestige costumes. New costumes have been added to the Benevolabs vendor in exchange for Prismatic Aether. So there's a whole list of costumes here like Civilian Casual Female, Male, Nemesis General, Langston Phaser, Langston Bruiser, Neo Shivan, and a whole bunch of others. You can check those out. In Tier 2, there is a Goldbricker Zenith Gold brand customization option for smaller robot and no flight. In Tier 3, Effect Force Field. Currently, same customization options as Personal Force Field. That's an effect. Effect Power of the Hamadon, Effect Chill, and Effect Fog. There's some changes, or there's some additions there if I've never actually been to that vendor because it requires Prismatic Aethers, and I'm not sitting on a ton of those, but those are some options. All right, so we have some updates to the Labyrinth of Fog. Malevolent Intoxication Badge now also unlocks the Phantom Gateway destination across the core labyrinth. The level minimum for the labyrinth has been lowered to 35 to allow people to use the Test of Combat mission for leveling. Added a pop-up display when a player earns the Inert Fog Dummy power. Changed the rotational implementation of Inert Fog Dummy so the skull faces the player. Forced the Labyrinth Pylon test critter to respawn promptly. Swapped out existing Chimerian flags with the new Labyrinth-themed flags. Coagulated pollutant archvillains now have one possible spawn point on every Labyrinth floor, always found nearby the floor's fog growths. Spawns on orange floors have been reduced to 1 point per floor nearby their floor's fog growths. Total number of concurrent coagulated pollutant AVs that are alive at any given moment will increase from 3 to 10. IDF Talons of Vigilance and So are no longer using their incarnate variants in the Labyrinth. Some script optimization to improve zone performance. Test of Combat missions are now always set to combat level 50, unlike the Labyrinth. Difficulty plus and minus settings are still respected. Slow resist given to Font GMs and Fog AVs to make them a little bit easier to position for tanks. They also fixed coagulated pollutant archvillains missing zapping fog effects. Fixed the Labyrinth Opal's shop powers being unusable in scenarios that should disable temporary powers. Nightmare Seed is now disabled anywhere that temporary powers are. Magnitude reduction on pull-through fogs when used outside the Labyrinth zone. high magnitude retained when used inside zone. I don't know. I felt like I was reading a bunch of words. I didn't know what most of those meant because I don't do a lot of this. So maybe that meant something to somebody. I apologize if the reading's a little off on that because it's hard to give proper intonation when you don't understand what half that stuff means. Moving right along, we have some enemy fixes or adjustments for the 5th council and column. Like lycanthrope transformation. When a creature transforms, the resulting transformation will respect the original rank instead of always being a boss rank, i.e. lieutenant rank lycanthropes will result in a lieutenant rank werewolf after transforming. That will be helpful when soloing. I know that those things can have taken me by surprise at times. Arachnoids increase Venom Barb 1 damage to from scale 1.2 to scale 1.6 and increase recharge from 4.8 to 6 seconds. I don't know if I need to read all of these, but we've increased the Venom Barb damage, decreased the Claw 1 and 2 accuracy while increasing the recharge. Arachnos Scirocco Slice has been replaced with Boomerang Slice. Black Wings. You know what, actually, there's a lot of different things here. I don't know if anyone's really going to sit here and read through all of this, but and it's hard to tell if you're looking over this, like, generally, are we increasing, are these buffs to the enemies or whatnot? And I see a combination of buffs and nerfs. So, like, we see increased trap soul damage on Taskmaster to scale from 0.9 to 0.1.0, but decreasing Taskmaster's Dusk Embrace from 2.1 to 1.3, no longer only hitting ground targets, increasing defense debuff from 12.5 to 20%, added missing continuing FX. So there's a lot of different things here through all the different enemies that they clearly have been working on, literally pages of stuff. So if you really think I should read pages of enemy readjustments, feel free to put it in the comments below and I'll give it due consideration. Let's move on to the task here, the weekly strike target. Marigold Zoe's Langston's task force has been added to the standard weekly rotation the weeks after Dr. Aeon's strike force. That's very exciting. Marigold's Zoe Langston's task force, the Golden Room Mission 4 music added to the transition cutscene from cave to train in the finale. They've also fixed the Nemesis beta not triggering the confiscated Nemesis staff temporary powers when they're hit with low health. And Dr. Aeon's Strike Force Tracing Fool's Gold. On Mission 4, we fixed a texture swap issue on a boat map that was causing certain gold textures to swap on unintended models. And in Aaron West Cutting Back Old Growth, we fixed subject, or the programmers fixed subject reference to mention talking to team leader. Fix the subject reference to mention talking to team leader. PvP adjustments. The random chance inspiration draw from defeating a player only occurs in PvP zones now, no longer possible in the arena. AE fixes. Added missing high-level Sky Raiders to NPC offers in Mission Maker. And there's been quite a bit of work here. Supergroup bases. SG Registrar contracts talk to any alignment. Added history plaques as items for Supergroup base editor. When clicked, they'll display the supergroup's name, motto, and description. Any base passcodes in the description that are surrounded with square brackets will be turned into links to enter that base, so that's very, very cool. New setting in the supergroup base settings under base entry permissions public access. Bases that are set to public access will appear as clickable links in the supergroup register listing. So this is going to make it much easier for you if you are into those first badges that I mentioned. You're going to have a much easier time getting around and getting logged in those bases and working on that badge. Now, this listing is cached. When you change your public base status, it'll take some time for the list to update. You have to be within 20 feet of the registrar NPC for the links to send you into a base. If you move away from it, the links will not work. Supergroups that put their own base passcode into the description field, which is visible by anyone, will automatically be made public. This will only happen once when the update is released. If you do not wish for your base to become public at that point, remove the passcode from the description. That's in big bold letters. You have been warned. There are now new commands /SG underscore set underscore public and /enter underscore public underscore base. The SG set public requires base entry permission, and it takes 1 or 0 as a parameter. Using SG set public 1 will make your base accessible by using the enter public base command with just the supergroup ID, or enter base from passcode using any passcode. For example, if your SG ID is 1234, you would be able to enter by using /enter public base 1234 or /enter base from passcode anything 1234. Any passcode will be taken as valid if the base is public. Using /SG set public 0 will remove public access to the base. The passcode and other permissions will still work if set. So that is very, very interesting. And I do wonder if that will just teleport you anywhere if you use that command. I don't go into super bases a whole lot. You guys can let me know what you think about this in the comments below. I'm not a big base person, but if you are, this looks very interesting. Prestige is now the estimated number of unique visitors the base has received since this patch. Oh, that is very cool. The estimate is based on the hyperlog log with 256 buckets. Account IDs are not tracked. But that's pretty cool that it kind of tracks unique visitors to the base, and that's your prestige now. Whereas before it was like, if I recall correctly, it was like a resource you collect to buy enhancements for the base. It's now more like, how popular is your base? So that's pretty good reuse of that particular variable. A new bouncer feature. Bouncer command inside the base /kiosk bouncer home allows you to kick a character from the base and prevent any of their ults from entering it. The list persists until the base resets. You can remove players from the block list in the same window. The little window that opens when you enter a supergroup base now has links to info, which opens the same window as clicking on a plaque, and bouncer, only if you can edit base entry permission. So clearly they've added some interesting things to the supergroup bases. Check those features out if you're into supergroup bases. Some miscellaneous stuff. Macro images now scale to the size of a power slot. And tray saving. You can use /tray underscore save underscore file and then a file name, and /tray underscore load underscore file and a file name to save and restore the power trays from a specific file. Added tray save and tray load to save and restore the power trays from a default file, 1 per character. Respecking will now preserve all your trays, removing any powers that are no longer relevant. Note, it will not add new powers to trays. You'll need to do that manually. That's really good. I respec. I do my share of respecking, and it would get into this bad habit of just, it was almost as if you had removed all of your powers and then it popped them all in, randomly almost, or as you pick them, and it was a mess. And I ended up spending like 5 minutes fixing my powers. This is a great quality of life adjustment, so thank you, devs. Now we get to some of the really cool things for those of us into powers. General adjustment. Set bonuses. Global bonuses now show up under their own section under the player powers list instead of being grouped with other set bonuses. So we're going to look at that on an example on how that looks. Global bonuses. I'm just writing a note down so we can look at that. So we'll do that. Now, increase the radius of a bunch of powers, including bio armors, evolving armor, and generic corruption, dark armors, cloak of fear, and abreast of gloom, earth assault, mud pots, and mud bath, energy auras, entropy shield, and repulse, icy armors, chilling embrace, and icy assault's chilling embrace, damage restricted to 8 feet. A lot of these have damage restricted to 8 feet, such as mud pots. Invulnerability, invincibility, aura has been increased. Mental manipulation, world of confusion, the damage is still restricted to 8 feet. Psionic armor's imposed presence has been increased. Psionic mastery's world of confusion, again, damage is restricted to 8 feet. Radiation armor's beta decay. Regeneration's integration, the brute tonker's taunt, or I believe it, part of that has been increased. Shield defenses against all odds, which I particularly like, so yay. Stone armor's mud pots, again, damage restricted to 8. Umbral aura's inky aspect, willpower's rise to the challenge. Now, tanker versions of any of the above powers that were already at 12 feet had no alterations according to the notes. So this should make your auras a little bit more useful in terms of doing, what they're supposed to do, such as, debuffing the enemy and such. We had some endurance cost changes. We reduced the Mastermind primary, their personal attacks, and secondary powers endurance cost to match other archetypes' endurance modifiers. They reduced all Epic Pool's endurance cost. They reduced the endurance cost of the ally res powers and support sets, and reduced the endurance cost in the following pools: fighting with boxing and kick and cross punch, flight with air superiority, leaping's jump kick, and super speed's flurry have all had their endurance cost reduced. Ally res powers in support sets. So Dark Miasma's Howling Twilights had their endurance cost from 26 endurance all the way down to 10. Ooh. Cast time reduced from 3.1 to 1.83 seconds. Range increased from 15 to 40 feet. And the power now grants a 15-second stealth effect on the revived ally. So this is a big help to that power for those of you who might have used that in the past. Empathy's Resurrect, something similar there. The recharge has been reduced from 180 to 120 seconds. Endurance cost reduced from 26 all the way down to 5. Cast time reduced from 3 to 1.8. Range increased from 15 to 60, and now you get a stealth out of it. Electric Affinities Debilitate, something very similar. In fact, with basically very similar changes to Defibrillate, Rebirth, Conduit of Pain, Elixir of Life, Mutation, and Thermal Radiation with Power of the Phoenix. You're going to see basically a huge endurance reduction in most of these. You see a recharge reduction in Conduit of Pain, Elixir of Life, Mutation, and some range increases on just about most of these and whatnot, and a stealth effect added to every single one of these, so that when someone's resurrected through this power, they have 15 seconds to pop inspirations, get their act together, or at least GTFO. All right, now here's the big boys. Here's what we've been waiting for, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, the archetype adjustments. Brutes. Brutes' resistance and defense modifiers have increased by 75 to 85%. What does this mean exactly? So modifiers are used to help determine how much benefit you're getting from, and I don't know this for a fact, but I want to say it's your powers and or your enhancements, but definitely I guess your enhancements enhance your powers, so it's going to affect both in that manner of speaking, but from your powers. Okay, when I create a level 1 brute and a level 1 tanker, then let's say they're both picking invulnerability and temp invulnerability, then usually the tanker will come out with, I'm just making up some numbers here, but he'll come out with like a 30% resistance, and the brute will come out with 22 resistance. And the reason is the brute's modifiers are lower. This is going to bring it up a lot closer to a tanker. I don't know if the tanker's at 90% or 100%, but this definitely takes them one big step closer to the tanker. And we're going to show an example on the screen by just looking at the character creator. We'll be able to see what those new percentages look like. PvP base resistances lowered from 10 to 0, and max hit points increase from about 1,500 to 1,600. So they're getting better defense and they're getting more hit points. That definitely makes brutes more tanky, particularly through the leveling process is where you're really going to feel the biggest benefit from this. By the time you're 50 and you're getting set bonuses, your key resistances and defenses are probably hitting the cap anyways. And brutes and tankers have had the same caps. So this is really, I think, in my opinion, mostly seen, at the lower levels, and also for some of those secondary defenses that may not have, normally hit cap. This will make it easier for the brute to cover more secondary resistances and defenses. So a big buff for brutes overall. Let's talk about Sentinels, my favorite solo class. Thank you guys, all of you who complained that Sentinels weren't good enough. Thank you, because the devs have heard you. So they've basically addressed an issue where Sentinel opportunity wasn't applying to pets. Self-resist and defense modifiers are increased from 70 to 75%. So this is important. This is basically making Sentinels more in line with with I believe scrappers and old brutes in terms of what they're getting from their defense modifiers. Now, in the past, when I've made a sentinel with the same power set as, say, a stalker or a scrapper, and I compare the two, that they would be the same essentially. No, I'm sorry. The sentinel would be a little bit less. This will bring them to where they are now, the same. Let's talk about the sentinel meter. You might remember that that's the opportunity meter that builds up, and you can apply vulnerability on an enemy. Well, now it only builds while in combat, so that's a nerf because normally it would build any time. It just basically just tick up. But we've buffed so much else, it's okay. Vulnerability is now a chain that can affect up to 5 targets, which means you have a lot more incentive to use vulnerability when you're doing your normal mobs, because you're going to get on 5 different enemies. And if you don't know, vulnerability applies a 15% flat resistance debuff to enemies, and they can't resist that debuff. So it's really great for bosses and stronger enemies. You can throw that on them. Opportunity now grants a perception buff based on meter buildup with a max of plus 40% at full meter. Opportunity, here it is, now grants a critical chance on all primary attacks based on meter buildup with a chance of 40% at full meter, 5% empty meter, and critical damages of 40% of strength of base power damage. So what that means in English, boys and girls, is as you're doing the vast majority of your attacks, if your opportunity bar is full, you've got a 40% chance for a 40% crit. A little bit quick math will tell you that's a 16% DPS increase on the average. This is still pretty different from, let's say, Stalker's crits or Scrappers. Let's talk about Scrappers. Scrappers are known for their crits. Scrappers have like a 5 or 10%, and it goes up, especially with ATO sets and against lieutenants and stuff, for double damage. So they're going to be a lot more spiky. The Scrappers will be a lot more spiky. The Sentinels, you're going to see those crits happen quite often, but they're not going to be as big as a Scrapper. Now, another big note here is that the Sentinel nukes have limited crit potential. So the crits can expand 40% of the bonus center damage to the full area of the power. Foes hit by the center damage won't take additional crit damage. So what happens normally with a Sentinel's nuke, most Sentinel's nukes have like a circle of damage that does quite a bit, and it's almost blaster level of damage, but then the outer ring does less damage. And that's what makes Sentinels do less damage overall than blasters. What this does is it says for those enemies outside the ring, they will get, let's see, it can expand 40% of the bonus center damage to the full area of the power. So basically, you're going to get more power to those people on the outside circle, bringing it closer and more in line with the people who are taking the damage in the middle. It's going to be a proc. You'll just have to watch him play, but ultimately it just basically comes down to nukes are better now for Sentinels. If you didn't think they were good enough before, all of the Sentinels are going to be better. So give that a shot. We're going to definitely show some of that on some footage here at the end. Stalker Assassination. The scale has increased from scale 7 to scale 8.5 in PvE. My assassination strikes are already pretty good, so I'm looking forward. I love Stalker. As you know, if people who pronounce it Stalker, doing it wrong, it's Stalker. And we love our Stalkers, so I'm glad that the assassination is going to get a bit of a buff. Now, Masterminds. They continue to work on Masterminds. They've been working quite a lot on Masterminds. So when your henchmen are summoned, they now have a temporarily high stealth and defense buff. So if you're like bringing them back up in combat, they don't immediately die. The buff lasts for up to 15 seconds or until the henchman engages in combat and PvE only. So teleportation. The T1 power can now teleport henchmen to the designated ground location. Henchmen will only be teleported if they're outside of supremacy range and have not attacked in the last 5 seconds. This will not replace living henchmen, only teleport them. Now, set bonus share has been increased from 40 to 50%. For those of you who don't know, during the last big patch, they changed they changed the way the minions' defenses and resistances and things like that were kind of figured out. And what they did is they said 40% of your set bonuses from whatever, like let's say you're wearing a set bonus that gives you 10% slashing resistance, right? 40% or 4% of that would apply to your pets. And I've tested, I've shown that on stream. This is now increasing to 50%. Okay, so the more set bonuses you have on your character, the more buffed your pets are. This helps your pets last in those really tougher, higher +4s, +5s a lot better. Supremacy. The Supremacy AoE defense plus resistance and regen effects have been lowered to 10, 10, and 100% respectively. It now grants a plus 10% resist all and AoE defense to henchmen within range. It now grants a 100% regen buff to henchmen within range. And while within the Supremacy range, henchmen will have a generic to hit buff visual effect on them. All henchmen within Supremacy range should now always have the same chance hit. Henchmen that leave Supremacy range and are not engaged in combat will receive a high stealth buff and perception debuff, as well as movement speed buffs. These will all cancel if they attack or are attacked or enter Supremacy range, and this all is PvE only. So Supremacy is that circle around you that while your pets are within that, I think it's 60-foot range, they usually get bonuses. That's why you want to be somewhat close to your pet. You don't want to send them way off the road because they get weakened quite a bit. And this looks to this. I believe this buffs them. This is an overall buff to them. There's a couple of moving pieces here, but it reads like mostly a buff to me. I'm mostly curious for myself about some of that regen buff because I know my pets take forever to heal. So without me manually healing them, so it'd be nice if that works to get them healed up a little bit faster. But overall, this should make them a little bit more survivable. The goal of a lot of the changes they've made is that your pets are more survivable against +3, 4, 5, 6, 7 monsters than in the past. One of the other big changes, a lot of people don't know, this happened before, is that when you summon your pets back in the old days, depending on what rank of that pet was, like if it's your base level pets or your lieutenant pets or whatever have you, but they would come in a level or two below you. The smaller pets would. Now they all come in at your level, which is a huge buff in and of itself, because for every level difference between a target and an enemy, there's an extra 9% chance to hit and to be hit. And stuff like that. So it can be really hard to hit somebody who's really high above you, and pets would miss all the time, because of that. So yeah, so that should help out a lot. Mastermind ATOs. Now these powers are now treated as damage sets as such. In addition to summon powers, they are now slottable on all primary personal attacks. They're also slottable on things like Cold Domination, Sleet, Dark Miasma's Howling Twilight, Force Field's Force Bolt and Repulsion Bomb, Marine Affinity's Shifting Times and White Camp, Poison's Poison Trap, Radiation Emissions Fallout, Storm Summonings, Freezing Rain, Gale, Lightning Storm, and Tornadoes, which honestly sounds like a lot of fun. I'm thinking bots and storm summoning just sounds really fun. They just sit there and pew pew while everything gets blown away and tornadoed away. Traps, Acid Motor, Caltrops, Seeker Drones, and Trip Mine, and Trick Arrows, Acid Arrows can now all take the Mastermind ATOs. So all of that's very exciting. But there is also changes for our melee friends as well. So let's get into some of those. Okay, so with Broadsword, Slash cast time has been lowered from 1.33 to 1.1. Slice now applies a 9% res debuff on targets for 15 seconds. Resistance debuff. After 15 seconds from last use, this power can inflict a rending slice on the main target, hitting for an additional 0.8431 lethal damage. The defense debuff lowered from 7.5 to 3.75. Cast time lowered from 2 seconds to 1.83. Mutual exclusive option to Boomerang Slice. Damage from 1.23 to 1.2346. And the Stalker has the target cap increase from 5 to 10 targets. Boomerang Slice, a new mutual exclusive option to Slice. It has a narrower area, but longer reaching than Slice. It applies a 9% res debuff on targets for 15 seconds. After 15 seconds from the last use, this power can inflict a rending slice on all targets, hitting for an additional 3 ticks of scale 0.23 DOT lethal damage. This power has similar stats with area, range, and animation being the major differences. 1.83 cast time, 8-second recharge, 30-foot range, 30-degree arc with scale 0.877 damage. So check out Boomerang Slice if you like to use Broadsword. Whirling Sword is recharge increased from 14 to 20 seconds. Radius increased from 8 feet to 10 feet on scrappers, 12 to 15 on tankers. Endurance cost increased from 13.5 to 18.5, but the damage has been buffed from 1.18 to 1.42. Disembowel has had the cast time reduced from 1.8 to 1.5. And Head Splitter, this power now can hit up to 2 additional foes in a 30-degree arc for 33% damage. And the target cap has been adjusted to 3 on all archetypes. Electrical Melee. Jacob's Ladder recharge has been increased from 8 to 9 seconds. The endurance cost has been increased from 8.5 to 9.3. Damage scale increased from 1.5 to 1.5233. Previous recharge endurances were too low for its damage according to the notes. Chain Induction. This power is now a true chain. Attack type changed from melee attack to AoE attack. This means it no longer accepts melee enhancement sets. It now accepts melee AoE enhancement sets. And Stalker, the stealth crit, can only trigger on the main target, and it remains at a 100% chance, which completely makes sense. Otherwise, that would be pretty sick. Lightning Clap. The power is now a foe targeted attack that inflicts 2.76 energy damage against its main target only. Power can now only proc on the primary target. Recharge lowered from 30 to 15 seconds. Accuracy increased from 0.8 to 1.0. Power now accepts damage enhancement and sets. And the chance to stun knockback lowered from 10 to 80%. So that gives us a little bit more use out of Lightning Clap. I think before it wasn't doing a whole lot. Lightning Rod, the center of this power has been expanded to 5 feet, but can only hit a maximum of 1 target. Scrappers and Stalkers can now crit for scale 3.2 if they hit with the centermost portion of the power. It is now a true pseudo pet on all archetypes. Don't know what that means. Somebody can help me out with that. Kinetic Melee. All powers. Damage debuffs now affect all damage types. It did not decrease toxic or psychic damage in the past. Damage debuffs are normalized to scale 0.7 for all archetypes and powers except for Burst. In Burst, the negative damage debuff is scale 1.2. Damage durations increase. The negative damage durations increase. So Quick Strike, Repulsing Torrent is 6 seconds of debuff, I believe. Body Blow, 8 seconds. Smashing Blow, Focus Burst, 10 seconds. Concentrate Strike, 12. And Burst is 15 seconds. The negative damage debuff now shows a negative damage effect. And the knockback values decrease by 50%. So, for example, a scale 0.67 knockback is a 0.4467 knockback. Swapped the damage type ratio so energy is higher and smashing lower to match energy defense type. Fixed Stalker powers not having the same damage scale ratio of smashing energy damage as to other archetypes. And fixed the Brute Fiery Embrace damage and Concentrated Strike. Power Siphon. The cast time has been lowered from 1.9 to 1.7. Recharge lowered from 120 to 90. 2-hit in Power Siphon mode duration lowered from 20 seconds to 15. Stack duration increased from 10 seconds to 15. Power now grants 1 stack of Siphon at activation. Each stack now grants plus 10% damage, down from 25%, but it now also increases toxic and psychic damage. Base power strength now goes up by 10% per own stack. This increases all base stats of the power before any other boosts. This includes damage, mes duration, debuffs, and knockback scale of kinetic melee powers, which sounds honestly a little sick. This multiplies against the buff base damage. For example, at 5 stacks, 100 damage attack becomes 150, and then is boosted by plus 50% to 225. Ooh, wow, okay. Repulsing Torrent, range decreased from 40 to 30%, lowering its area factor, but the damage scale has been increased from 1.1 to 1.29. Knockback scale lowered from 3 to 1, now inflicts a scale 0.7 negative damage debuff for 6 seconds, now grants a Power Siphon stack. Focus Burst is now able to chain up to 4 extra targets, ricocheting kinetic energy. Tankers can now hit up to 10 total targets due to overcap, like with the 5 target cones. The first target takes the full damage, with each extra target taking 25% less, up to a minimum of 25%. Burst has had its cast time lowered slightly from 2.67 to 2.53, and now deals damage over time during the start of the animation, then a stronger final hit. The total damage scale is unchanged, and Stalker's stealth crit rate lowered to 50%. Concentrated Strike can now grant 2 stacks of Siphon, 1 at the start as you begin to drain the target and 1 at the final hit. It now deals 1/3 of its damage over time during the start of the animation. Total damage scale unchanged. Stun chance increased from 60% to 100. Cast time lowered from 2.8 to 2.67. Stalkers and Scrappers now deal 3 scale, 1.18 ticks on crit, fully matching the total base damage over time. Stalkers no longer recharges build-up on crit. Scrappers no longer has a chance to recharge Power Siphon. A lot of really interesting things. Looks like a big win to Kinetic Melee for me. Let me know if you're a Kinetic player. Let me know what you think in the comments below, because I don't have a... If I have one, I haven't leveled it up a whole lot. I think I do, but I'm not an expert. So let me know, you Kinetic Melee players, what you think in the comments below. Psionic Melee. Insight no longer has a lockout. Insight DOTs have been standardized to guarantee their average damage each time they are applied. Mental Strike Insight DOT changed from an 80% chance of a 0.084 times 4 over 3.1 to a 100% chance of 0.06 times 3 over 2.1. Similar changes, I'm not going to read out every detail, to Psy Blade, Telekinetic Blow, Psy Blade Sweep, and Mass Levitate. And just looking at this, I'm not sure if that part is a buff or a nerf, but I love Psionic Melee. That is my main Stalker. So we're going to see exactly how that works out for that character. Boggle cast time reduced from 2 seconds to 1 second. Yay. Now has a highlight ring if you do not have any target you've boggled. It really wants you to boggle people. It is a really cool power. Effects now last 15 seconds to indicate the effect is being active. Chance to proc Insight on powers increased from 2 times to 3 times. Example, Mental Strikes 8.9% goes from 17.7 to 26.6% versus a boggled target. I did not know that was a thing. I didn't read all the small print. That's good to know. Greater Psy Blade now has a highlight ring when you have Insight. Insight's damage increased from scale 1.3 to 1.65. Insight Strike no longer changes the Mag 3 hold portion to scale 12. Instead, it now adds an additional scale out Mag 1 hold that stacks with the base hold. Ooh, I likey. Mass Levitate. Delay for dealing damage reduced from 2 seconds to 1.5 to better match when the targets impact the ground. Very nice. Overall, sounds like a win for my Psionic Melee Stalker, so I do like that quite a bit. Alright. Sonic Melee. This is one of my tankers I've been working on quite a bit in the background, is my big Boom Shakalaka Man, my Sonic Melee tanker. Strident Echo Sonic Thrust. Increase these powers bonus against attuned targets from 15 seconds to 25 seconds. Sonic Clap. This power now triggers a DOT around up to 5 targets around an attuned target. Attuned target must be in the area of effect and hit by the base power. Highlight ring in this power means you have an attuned target, but the power has not managed to apply its splash DOTs to any foes in the last 15 seconds. Very interesting. I'm going to have to try that out. Basically, I believe Sonic Clap does some damage to everybody. It's always felt kind of weak to me. I think I've mentioned before with Sonic Melee, it's pretty good at taking down single targets on a tanker. I haven't tried on other classes, but by tanker standards, the idea is you attune to them and then you do all these extra effects when you hit them. So doing this with Sonic Clap will hopefully bring its AoE damage a little bit more in line with some of the other power sets. Deafening Wave. This power now triggers a DOT around up to 5 targets around an attuned target. Highlight ring in this power means you have an attuned target, but the power has not managed to apply its splash in the last 15 seconds. Ear Splitters increase powers bonus that gets attuned targets from 10 to 20%. Very good news, I think, for my Sonic Melee guy. We'll have to give it a shot and see how it works out. Spines. Barb Swipe. The DOT duration has increased from 2.1 to 3.1, so giving you an extra tick from 3 to 4. Lunge. On a hit, you gain a 15% plus to spine poison for 15 seconds. This replaces self. Spine poison increases the odds of spine's DOT of continuing per tick. While active, this increases the odds from 80 to 95%. When spine poison is not active, a highlight ring will appear around lunge. Cast time lowered from 1.6 to 1.33. Recharge lowered from 6 seconds to 5 seconds. Lethal damage scale lowered from 1.3 to 1.08. Endurance cost lowered from 6.8 to 6.0. And the DOT dot duration increased from 3.1 to 6.1, giving you 3 extra ticks from 4 to 7. Impale now deals a negative 100% regen buff for 15 seconds, replacing self. Cast time reduced from 2.4 to 2.2. Recharge increased from 8 to 10. Endurance cost increased from 8.5 to 10.1. The dot now lasts for 15 seconds, 16 total ticks at 80% chance. The dot starts at scale 2 and decays to scale by 0.05 by the last tick. Combined, you got a total possible scale 3.64 damage, which is not too shabby. Spine burst. Cast time has been lowered from 3 seconds all the way down to 1.67. Recharge lowered from 16 to 10. Endurance from 15 to 10. Lethal damage scale lowered from 0.9 to 0.6. The DOT duration increased from 3.1 seconds to 6.1, so you're going from 4 to 7 ticks total. Ripper, the DOT duration increased from 4.1 to 7.1, and throw spines, the DOT duration increased from 6.1 to 7.1, giving you more ticks overall. You guys will, you spine players will have to let me know. I do have a spine tanker, but I have not spent a lot of time on them, so you guys will have to let me know what you think about that one overall. I'd be very interested to know what your opinion is on those things. And whatnot. Moving on, fiery melee, breath of fire, brutes, scrappers, stalkers. Oh, hallelujah. Arc has increased from 30 degrees to 120 degrees. You guys can take it now, okay? I know you guys told me, I don't even take it, Phil. You can take it now, okay? 120 degrees is great. Cast time reduced from 2.67 to 2.4. FX has been adjusted to reflect the new area, and it hits 10 targets. Fiery breath for the tankers. Damage scale increased from 2 ticks of scale 0.68 to 0.7116. The cast time has been lowered from 2.67 to 2.5. If the main target is within melee range, they will take 4 ticks of 0.7 instead of 2 ticks. So that's definitely a buff. Fire Sword now has no swords theme. Fire Circle has a no swords theme. Greater Fighter Sword no longer applies a negative defense debuff, no longer accepts defense debuff sets, now has a no swords theme. So very interesting stuff going on there. Storm Blast. Now Storm Blast. Here we go. We've talked about this quite a bit on my streams and stuff. They've been making quite a bit of change. They've been really focusing on Storm Blast, so we got a lot to cover here. Storm Brewing is a separate temporary power that can stack up to 5 times on a player instead of being tied directly to the power used. Each stack increases the odds of lightning proc attacks by 1%. The high winds proc is now tied to Storm Brewing and lasts 10 seconds of time. Intensify now gives you 5 Storm Brewing stacks. The Storm Cell is now immobile. Cast time reduced from 2 seconds to 1.1 second. The recharge reduced from 60 seconds all the way down to 15 seconds. The radius increased from 25 to 35. While High Winds is active, Storm Cell will cast automatic lightning in addition to lightning procs granted by attacking with Storm Blast powers. So this all looks very, very interesting. The Storm Cell that I tested on the test server moved with me. So the idea was that as I moved, it kind of moved with me. And this was supposed to help it make it more mobile for groups that are constantly moving quick or whatever, like when you're with a go group. This it looks like it's immobile again, because I think that's the default, is that it's always been immobile, I'm pretty sure. So that's not really a change. I don't think. But anyways, the cast time is much faster, so you're not spending as much time setting it up, and the recharge is much faster. So you should be able to use it every fight without a problem as an opener. Storm Cell, automatic lightning. These procs are now an aura power granted to the storm cell as long as high winds is active. Every proc can proc every 1 second on any target within the cell. After hitting a target, up to 2 additional nearby targets can be struck with a 20% chance of occurring for each. The main target cannot be hit again for 1 to 3 seconds by the proc, but can be struck by chain procs of nearby targets. Each tick, there's a 20% chance of casting a strong lightning proc instead that hits as hard as a normal lightning proc. Storm Cell lightning procs. Target cap set at 3 at all times, up from up to 4, dependent on storm brewing. Damage scale increased from 0.5 to 1.0. The proc rate per power changes. Gust 20%, hailstones, jet storm 30%, direct strike fast and chain lightning 40%, cloudburst 50%, direct strike slow 80%. Can only occur every 2 seconds from the same caster, no longer locked out on the target for multiple casters. These lightning procs can stack with automatic lightning. Then Storm Cell Lightning Lockout. Damage endurance drain are no longer subject to any sort of lockout. All versions of Lightning now have a 33% chance to either inflict knockback or a brief magnitude 3 stun. If either effect is proc, the target is immune from other strikes inflicting these effects for 5 seconds. So a lot of stuff going on there. It mostly looks like buzz. I need to see it in action to have a really strong opinion of it. And our new community character is using the storm blast, if I recall correctly. It's a corruptor with radiation, so we should be able to test some of this out as we level up that character. Category 5, the duration shortened from 30 to 20 seconds. Sentinel duration shortened from 20 to 15 seconds. Radius of the damage over time, lightning and storm cell check increased from 30 to 40 feet. Sentinel radius increased from 30 to 35. The damage over time rate reduced from 5 times per second to 3 times per second. Category 5I, delay reduced from 3 to 2 seconds for summoning the Cyclone for crowd control effects. Duration shortened from 25 to 17 seconds. Sentinel shortened from 15 to 10. Radius reduced from 30 to 25 feet. Sentinel radius reduced from 25 to 20 feet. The damage scale is unchanged in those. DOT rate increased from 2 times per second to 3 times per second and starts immediately. Category 5 Lightning now automatically strikes every 0.67 seconds and has a 25% chance to trigger per target up to 5 targets. Damage reduced from scale 1 to 0.5. Shares the lightning lockout properties with Storm Cell Lightning for secondary mez effects. Damage and endurance drains not subject to lockout. Category 5 Sentinels. Address implementation issues with Category 5 and Sentinels. This increases the damage down in the outer rim and decreases max damage on the standard 10-foot center radius. Chain Lightning no longer deals additional damage over time. It is now an auto hit for applying its chain across enemies. The power still needs to pass it to hit check in order to actually hit enemies, but is no longer subject to critical failures. And Cloudburst now accepts slow and to hit debuff enhancements. Lot of moving pieces there, especially for, I think, for Sentinels that did Storm Blast. I wouldn't do a Storm Blast Sentinel personally, but I do love Sentinels, but not a Storm Blast Sentinel. But you guys have to tell me what you think in the comments below. Tell me what you think about all this. There's a lot of moving pieces going on here. And I think for me, the jury will be out until I actually, play it a bit. So I'll let you guys know what I think. Marine Affinity, Whitecap, changed to location teleport power instead of targeted teleport due to the extremely unreliable teleport mechanics. Okay, so that means you're going to have to put it down on the ground and stuff. Recharge lowered from 30 to 15 seconds. Endurance cost reduced from 18 to 14. Cast time reduced from 2 to 1.5. Nice. Brine has had its cast time reduced from 2 to 1.3, and Shoal Rush has had its lowered from 2.1 to 1.33. Soothing Wave damage debuff lowered from scale 1.2 to 0.75 is now resistible. Tide Pool lowered from 2.4 to 1.5 and is resistible. Tide Pool Frenzy's damage debuff lowered from scale 1.2 to 0.75 is now resistible. Tide Pool Frenzy. Individual targets can only be knocked down once every 4 seconds, and Shifting Tides can now only trigger damage 4 times per second on the same enemy. Outside of Whitecap, this is clearly a significant nerf to Marine Affinity. It's probably not too hard to understand why it was really, really good. It came out of the gate swinging, and I know that, all I heard from people was, it was just ever so good. So yeah. This hurts me. This hurts me right here, boys. It gets me in the feels because my favorite mastermind has been Beastmaster Marine Affinity, and so that's obviously going to be a kick in his craw. Let's talk about summoning power set adjustments. Beast Mastery. Well, speaking of Beast Mastery, here's the other side of it. Let's see what they did to that. Lick Wounds. This power has been changed from scale 1.33 range heal to scale 2 heal self. 20% self heal. Power now available to Howler Wolves as part of the Tame Beast upgrade. Ooh, okay. Well, that I like because they don't have a lot of great healing. How all versions. Cast time reduced from 3.6 to 1.6. Wow, nice. Maiming Bite, all versions. The cast time's been reduced from 2.4 to 1.9. Freezing Roar, your Dire Wolf has had its cast time reduced from 2.8 to 1.9. And Terrible Roar, cast time reduced from 3.6 to 1.6. And your Dire Wolf's going to use it more often now. Whew, well, the good designers taketh away, then they giveth. And so those are all very nice for the Beastmaster side of my Beastmaster Marine Affinity Mastermind. Thank you. Other power set adjustments. Dual pistols. Swap ammo now changes 100% of the set's damage to the element of the active ammo type. Note that the attack type will always remain lethal. Please scrutinize powers as much as possible for any discrepancies. Pyrotechnic Control, one of my favorite dominators. Glittering Column. The explosion component is now an auto power. Oh, I guess that implies it had a mischance before, I believe. Good to know. Thank you. Yeah, you're right. I guess sometimes it didn't knock them up into the air. Hypnotizing Lights. Damage confused proc should now only trigger off the confused damage sub power. Okay. Dark Miasma's Black Hole. Due to potential harassment against some enemy groups, now only the main target of the power will be phased. Should be immune to the repel effects, and the radius increased from 20 to 30 feet. And then Epic Dark Mastery Black Hole, something similar. The radius has been increased from 10 to 20 feet. Bug fixes. Fixed a visual issue with to hit buff showing a small white square inside players who are stealth. Fixed incorrect PvP damage scalars of Blaster Atomic Manipulation Depositron Cell and Sonic Manipulation's Echo Chamber. Fix the power icon for Confront on Scrapper's Kinetic Melee using the AoE border. Fix the power icons for Hack and Slash being incorrectly reversed. And fixed a bug where multiple powers were not ignoring buffs despite having resistance buffs. And following powers have been affected. I'm afraid to click on this, but there is a huge list. Okay. Whew, we got through all the notes. I'm not even sure how many minutes we're up to on this because I did this in segments because I had to take a breath. But we have some things to cover now. We're gonna show some video of the enhancement changes, the global bonuses. We're gonna show off some of the Sentinel stuff, and the global bonuses and how they show the bonuses on that. We're gonna show this all through some video right now. The one thing that I won't be showing here that I think is pretty significant is obviously Storm Blast has had some huge changes here. That I will just, I'm not the Storm Blast expert. We just recently made a Storm Blast character as our community character. And I've got videos of that character now going level 1 through 8, no double XP. If you don't know, her name is Fallout Queen. There's a separate playlist for that character. And it's me taking that character. Solo self-funded means she's not getting money for sets or anything from other characters. She is solo character only. She only plays alone. And she is basically earning her own way and buying sets as she levels up. And no double XP. So, and I'm reading everything out loud. The story arcs and everything. So I just got through the Matthew Habashi story arc that leads to a couple of others, and there's a full story there, and I read all that out loud, so you can go and you can check that out. But she is Stormblast Radiation, whatever it's called, Corruptor. And so I'll get a better feel for Stormblast, and I'll have more opinion on how all these changes come together and how I feel that the power set feels as a whole after I've spent at least another dozen or so hours with that character and got him up into the 20s or 30s. So But let me know, for you guys who've been playing a lot of Stormblessed, I'm sure you have a ton of opinions on us. I'd love to hear about this in the comments below. With that being said, let's cut on over to the game and check out some of those promised changes. Okay, so we're going to show you what I meant by the different enhancements and how this really affects Brute. So if we take a look at, let's say, Scrapper, we use Scrapper as our baseline here, and we'll go to secondary powers, and we're going to use Invulnerable, Temp Invulnerability here. If you mouse over Temp Invulnerability, you're going to see you get a 22.5% bonus from, or resistance to smashing and lethal on Temp Invulnerability on a Scrapper. Okay, now in the past, if you did this on a Sentinel, you would probably see a 20%, bonus or whatever the case may be. But if we take a look at Sentinel now, and we take a look at that, and we go over here to secondary powers, and we take invulnerability and resist physical damage, we're now going to see, or temp invulnerability, we're going to see the same 22.5 now on a blaster that you would see on a Scrapper. Now, if we go over here to a tanker, okay, yes, I know, stop complaining, and we were to do temp invulnerability temp and look at that, we would see that it is a 30%, right? A 30% resistance. So I think that's because they have 100%, they have 100%, so to speak. Now, let's take a look at the Brute. So in the past, the Brute was like, it was basically 22.5%. It was in line with the Scrapper. Now, it had higher caps and had more hit points, so it was still tankier than a Scrapper, especially towards the end game when caps matter. In the low levels, it just was the extra hit points. But if we take a look now at their, an invulnerability and temp invuln, and we take a look at that, what do we get? 25.5. We're getting 25.5. So we're somewhere now in between the tanker and the Scrapper. Though you are still a little bit closer to Scrapper than you are to tanker, right? It's not like right in the middle. If we take a calculator out and we were to say 22.5 plus 30 divided by 2, the midway point would be 26. It's 25.5 because they're 85%. So you're going from 75 to 85, but tankers are still at 100%. So it's a little bit less than half, right? So that's where you're at. You're getting a little bit of a bump there as a Brute. It's going to be a little noticeable. Now remember, your enhancements are going, key off of your base here. So this improves your enhanced values at the end of the day as well. So it's a nice little bump for Brutes. It's not suddenly making them as tough as a tanker. The tanker has still got a significant advantage, but it's definitely one step in that direction to making that Brute more tanky. So, and that's kind of fair given the fact that tankers have gotten quite a few offensive boosts over the years. I don't think this is a huge stretch there. Okay, so let's go now and let's take a look at the enhancements while looking at a Sentinel changes at the same time. So we're going to log out here. We're going to pick on, we'll do Voltaic Veil here, I guess. We'll just show off some of the crits and stuff. Now, first off, we're going to go to Manage Enhancements here. I don't know if I have Unslaughters on this character. In order to show this off, I need some Unslaughters. So let me go to Salvage here. Let me just see if I have any Unslaughters here. I do not. We'll need to buy some Unslaughters real quick. I'll just buy those off the auction house real fast here. I bet you the price of these is actually going up at the moment because this really makes Unslaughters more valuable. So let me see if I can get it for 100,000 here. I can. All right, I'll grab a couple here. All right, got some enhancement converters there. All right, that I got for whatever reason. All right, so let's say just for an example, I am just going to look over this character, Short Circuit. I really like Short Circuit a lot, and I felt like I sold it a little bit short. I need to get another slot in there, but I don't want to do a full respec. And maybe I was kind of silly by putting an extra one into fly here. So theoretically, I can drag this flight over. This will use up an unslaughter, of course. And then I could drag, let's say, I need an appropriate power to drag over there. What do I need? Endurance modification, maybe? I think I need an endurance modification here in short circuits. Let me go by endurance modification real quick. So we'll go to crafted endurance modification. Just grab one of these bad boys real quick. Pop that into my inventory. Go back to manage here. So theoretically, you can see now I have extra slots showing up all over the place because it's going to take it from flight. Which kind of begs the question, what if I had two? So it will take it and put it over to here without me having to do a full respec, which does kind of beg the question, what if I also had an open slot in stamina? Would it know where to take this from? It took it from stamina. It took it from stamina. I guess that's not the biggest deal because as soon as I put it in stamina, it's going to take it back from flight if I want it to come from flight ultimately. So you can see this gives you a lot more flexibility in how you move things around without respecking. You can now move these slots around without respecking. So that's a really big help. Okay. Last but not least, let's get out there and just do a mission and show these Sentinels crits in action. See if I got a mission here. Nope. We'll just grab an alignment mission real fast. Remember, boys and girls, always do alignment missions because they will eventually give you some big time merits. And we'll go and see if I can figure out where is this guy. There it is. We'll go in there and zap some things. How was that? And we'll show this off just a bit for you guys. But let me know what you think about all these different patch notes in the comments below. I'm really looking forward to seeing how the community reacts. Might even do a community reaction video on it based on what you guys say in my comments down below. Okay. Let's go ahead and find some people to slap here. Just, these guys are all going to turn on me and attack at once, aren't they? I feel like they are. Oh, well, here's some guys up here, so I'm sure nothing could go wrong. We'll pull out my little pet just to be on the safe side. Now, your chances to crit go up as the bar goes up, and that bar goes up from attacking. So watch the bar below my endurance bar. The same place as would be your, fury bar if you were playing a brute or something. It's not going up as fast, that's for sure. It's definitely a slower build up. So we got a little shocked in there. There's a critical right there, so that hurt him quite more than it hurt me. There's another crit right there. Oof. That's just most unfortunate for him. More crits. And you can see where it's showing the 113 and then the 40 extra damage from the crit. So a nice 40% extra damage there. Yeah, it's definitely helping with the single target damage, no problem. Oh. No, we don't want you up that close, buddy. We'll try a little AoE here with these guys and see if we see some... Whoa, 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 I did not see this guy over here by himself. Let's take care of this guy first. We didn't get a crit out of either one of those. Oh, that was... It is... She's really creaming these guys. You can definitely... I definitely feel a bit of a difference here. Especially if I use charge up first. This is just going to hurt somebody more than it hurts me. You see definitely some crits going on there. And yeah, it is feeling pretty good. Of course, this build is also about reducing endurance, but honestly, with things dying so fast, Wow, that is impressive. So, very, very cool. The Sentinels everywhere rejoicing. Um, there's definitely a lot of coolness for them and whatnot. So, lieutenants, not really going to be too much of a problem as long as I actually hit. Okay, that did actually take more hits than that guy's almost dead. That's a quick mission, but that's a quick show off my very knee-jerk. I saw this on the test server already. I was impressed, and I continue to remain impressed now that I get to play it on one of my live characters, my Electric Sentinel here, whose damage did feel a little lackluster before. Definitely feels a lot more solid now, and that makes me very, very happy. If you're a Sentinel player, let me know in the comments below what you think about this. And her defenses should be just a titch better now that now that they're getting 75% instead of 70%. So her armor should also be a little bit better. I should have done like a before and after. That would have been the smart thing to do, but I didn't think to do that. But psychic is now given. It was, I can tell you, I'm 95% sure that my smashing and psionic before on this were 21% and lethal was 14%. So it's now 22.5 base. And then, of course, I'm getting 40% extra, so it brings up to 31. So she's probably like at 29% before, and now it's 31. So a little extra. Nothing huge. Nothing she's going to write home about. But, and I think you're going to see this, feel this a little bit better if you have defenses. But yeah, pretty good little extra buff across the board. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And thank you so much for watching. And until next time, may God bless you.